Some breaking news just coming into CNN. An explosion on board the USS Bonhomme Richard has left several sailors injured at a U.S. naval base in San Diego. Now, this is according to the San Diego Fire Department. Obviously, these are some of the pictures from the scene there. Several sailors, we're told, are currently being treated for a variety of injuries. At this time, not clear what started that fire, but we are going to continue to monitor this, and we'll bring you more of those details as they come into us here at CNN. Breaking news just into CNN out of San Diego. What you are looking at is the aftermath of an explosion on board the USS Bonhomme Richard. It's left several sailors injured at the U.S. naval base there in San Diego. That's according to the San Diego Fire Department. We know several sailors are currently being treated for what we're told is a variety of injuries. CNN's Paul Verkaman is following this story for us. So, Paul, I know you just got some new information. What more are you learning?
Well, as you pointed out, they say that several sailors have been injured in this explosion, which happened just before 9 local time on the Bonhomme Richard. And let's tell you a lot more about this ship so you can get a sense for what could be burning here. This is an amphibious assault vehicle. I actually have toured the Bonhomme Richard. It's fascinating because on the deck it can launch helicopters and aircraft, and then from below it launches what are called LCACs. These are those transportation carriers that you can put a tank on, or personnel carriers, anything that adds up to 6. I don't know if it's burning in that area of the ship. It also has a field hospital. The Bonhomme Richard can treat patients. And that name, you might be wondering, where did it come from? It comes from Benjamin Franklin. The French had called him Goodman Richard or Bonhomme Richard. This has been a useful vessel for the Navy. It played a big role in Iraqi freedom. You might also recall that it was a big part of the rescue, the air and sea effort, when that ferry capsized off South Korea. The Bonhomme Richard on fire. We need to hear more from officials about how many sailors injured, but the only thing that we heard or saw was a tweet that said several being treated. Back to you now, Erica.
All right, Paul, we know you'll continue to follow this and update us as we learn more. Appreciate it. Thank you. Still to come.
Let's go back to that breaking story out of San Diego. You are looking at fire crews fighting a large fire aboard a U.S. naval ship. According to the San Diego Fire Department, there has been one injury that we know of. There was apparently an explosion aboard a ship called the USS Bonhomme Richard. Let's hear more now from Allison Ash, who's with our NBC affiliate KNSD in San Diego. Allison, what can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you this fire started sometime just before 9 o'clock. That was when San Diego Fire was notified that help was needed aboard Navy Base San Diego as the fire had broken out, we believe, beneath deck on the USS Bonhomme Richard. Now, this is an amphibious assault ship, and it is home ported. It was here for regular maintenance. We are told by a spokesperson from the base that there are always crew members aboard. On the weekend, there are fewer crew members aboard, but there are always crew members aboard. That spokesperson was not able to confirm for us whether anybody had been injured in this fire. Now, when the fire department got here shortly after 9, they immediately called in a second alarm. Very shortly after that, the third alarm. About 11 o'clock, just before 11, we heard a very loud explosion. It shook the entire area, and we're probably a quarter mile away trying to avoid that dark black plume of smoke, which many Navy personnel have told us is full of nothing but toxic chemicals that we don't want to breathe in. So we heard that explosion. Then we began seeing ambulances coming and going. The only confirmation that we have gotten thus far was from San Diego Fire. They say several sailors were treated for a variety of injuries. They also say one person was injured in the explosion, but they're not saying whether that was a member of the fire department, whether it was Navy personnel, not saying who that was. We are hearing chatter on Twitter, some people from a nearby shipyard talking about evacuations, that they're going to evacuate the entire ship and start trying to fight this with some sort of chemical retardant. And I can tell you from my vantage point, just a little bit north of where the ship is burning, very black smoke. The darkest smoke that we've seen in the 2-3 hours that we've been here is just now starting to billow out of there and we've just seen more ambulances pull into the area. So a very tense situation here aboard Navy base San Diego. We know federal firefighters are here. We know the Navy folks are here, and San Diego Fire is here in full force trying to get this thing contained. But I got to tell you, from what I see, they've got a lot of work ahead of them.
Allison, can you orient us to where exactly this is in San Diego? There's a significant naval community there and a number of places where ships might be docked or serviced. Where is this, particularly in relation to the big population centers in San Diego?
Okay, well, Naval Base San Diego is just south of downtown. So if you've ever been to San Diego, you know the downtown area where the USS Midway is, where all the shops and restaurants and the Embarcadero, the cruise ships. We're about a mile to the south of that. We're in more of an industrial area south of downtown, and the smoke is primarily heading south. Not a lot of homes in this area, but I can tell you there are some apartments just to the east, not very far away, half mile maybe at most. Earlier this morning, I could see that they were getting a lot of smoke. I hope a lot of people were closing their windows. It's a hot day here in San Diego, and a lot of us don't have air conditioning, but I can guarantee once they got a whiff of that smoke, they would close their windows. We got a whiff. We were right in the line of the smoke, and we said, we're out of here, and moved north because the wind seems to be blowing from the north to the south at this point.
Yeah, I can totally understand you closing your windows. By the way, it's worth noting that this is an oil-burning naval vessel, not a nuclear naval vessel, mercifully, although that doesn't necessarily make anything easier in terms of air quality. What you're looking at right now are scenes from Naval Base San Diego of the USS Bonhomme Richard, which is on fire. We've got word of one confirmed injury. Not a whole lot of sailors that were aboard this weekend. It's got a lower complement on weekends than weekdays. It had just undergone some maintenance, as we understand it, but it's unclear if this fire and the explosion that Allison was just telling us about are a result of the maintenance or if they were incidental with the maintenance as well. Allison, what's going on in the area in terms of evacuations, other injuries, anyone who may have been overcome by the smoke? What about the broader rescue operation?
Well, understand that we are being kept pretty far away and off base. But from my vantage point, and I'm to the north, I can look south, and I've just noticed in the last 5 minutes a number of people, I would say dozens, if not over 100 people. First, they seem to be jogging out of the way, a ways away from the ship. And now they seem to be lingering, but closer to the gate, so that they're not really right underneath all of that smoke. In terms of right next to the ship, from our vantage point, we simply can only see the bridge of the ship and all the smoke pouring out. We can't see what's happening on the ground at this point.
And do we have any sense, Allison, of what happens from here? I mean, are fire crews expecting this to be a long firefight? I assume it's going to be a while, considering that it probably takes a lot of fuel to power a vessel like this. But what's the rest of the day estimated to look like?
Well, you got to understand that this is a active working situation. Nobody has time to talk to us, but I can tell you, in my nearly 40 years of being a reporter and covering a whole lot of fires and some really bad ones, I've got to tell you that this appears to be one of the very worst I've ever seen. And I've got to believe this is going to take a good part of the day for them to get this out and then to try to figure out what caused it and how to prevent it from happening again.
I definitely hear that. I mean, it looks like they've got quite a firefight on their hands in San Diego at the naval station with the USS Bonhomme Richard. Allison Ash from NBC station KNSD, NBC San Diego. Allison, we appreciate you helping us through this. We may yet talk again as the hour goes on, but for now, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Well, keep an eye on these pictures. Keep an eye on this firefight. Worth reminding you, there was a report of one injury, a significant explosion that Allison said rattled the windows where she was. The smoke apparently seems to be blowing south, which is not towards the more populated parts of San Diego in terms of residential neighborhoods, also blowing away from downtown San Diego, which is north of where the Bonhomme Richard is currently. And so far, we've only got one word of a confirmed injury. Still waiting on more details about how this explosion happened, what exactly is on fire, whether there are other people who may be affected inside this vessel. Presumably they got everybody out. And then, of course, where this firefight goes from here. Just one more big breaking story on a day full of breaking developments. We'll keep an eye on this and much more as the hour goes on. Sit tight.
Want to turn now to our other breaking story. Firefighters are on the scene of this explosion. You can see it here at a San Diego naval shipyard. This is the USS Bonhomme Richard. It suffered some sort of a blast a short time ago. We have been told several sailors were injured. Joining me now, CNN military and diplomatic analyst, retired Rear Admiral John Kirby. Always good to speak with you. So as you look at these pictures, any idea in your mind what may have caused that explosion?
Short answer is no. It's hard to tell just from these very dramatic images exactly what the cause of the fire is. It obviously is a large, very big fire that takes up. It looks like it's engulfing much of the ship, amidships, right? Underneath where the island is. So it's clearly a very big fire, but very difficult to tell just based on what we're seeing from the outside what could have caused this. Now, the San Diego Public Information Officer said the ship had just completed a maintenance cycle. So, one possibility that I'm sure investigators will look at when they get the fire under control is whether or not it could have been started as a result of some maintenance problem, maybe some repair that was not made properly enough. But it's just too soon to tell right now.
Hard to tell. I know I really put you on the spot there, but I appreciate it as always. As we look at the ship, just give us a sense, too, not only a little bit of the history of this ship, but how many sailors could be on board? As you mentioned, they had just completed some maintenance, the fact that it's in the naval shipyard right now. Right. We do know several sailors were injured, but any sort of background you have for us on the USS Bonhomme Richard?
Well, the Bonhomme Richard is the third one to bear that name. That name is famous in naval history because it was the name of the ship that John Paul Jones sailed in during the American Revolution. This particular iteration of Bonhomme Richard is an amphibious assault ship. She's about 845 feet long, so roughly the length of an aircraft carrier in World War II. And it's a helicopter assault ship. So while they don't fly jet planes off of it, they do fly helicopters to support Marines ashore. The crew is a complement of about 1,200, and since she was in port on a Sunday, I'm guessing probably only about 200, maybe 250 sailors were probably on board when this fire broke out. She is at Naval Base San Diego, which is our largest naval base on the West Coast. More than almost 50 ships, more than 45 ships are based there of all different stripes. And when you look at the video, you can see that she's on a pier just across from a U.S. Navy destroyer. So there's all kinds of ships there based in San Diego. A very important type of ship in the Navy. We use them as part of expeditionary strike groups to, again, sort of project power forward and onto the shore in supporting Marines as they go ashore for combat operations. Very, very big ship. Looks like a very big fire. It's going to be very interesting to see what they finally nail down as the cause of it. It could be fuel related. It could be in the engineering spaces and that something could have gone wrong. We've heard about an explosion. We don't know whether the explosion was first and then the fire or the other way around. And of course, there's always ammunition on these kinds of ships, depending on where they are in their pre-deployment workup cycle. So again, going to be very interesting to see what they learn about this. And obviously, we hope that the numbers of sailors affected by this remain very, very low. So far, we've only heard of several injuries and no deaths. And of course, that's encouraging, but we have to wait to see how they get this fire under control.
Yeah, an excellent point. Encouraging. Let's hope it stays that way. Admiral John Kirby, always appreciate your expertise. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We'll continue to stay on top of this breaking news. Again, if you're just joining us, you're looking at pictures out of the naval shipyard in San Diego, where we're told several sailors are injured after an explosion on the USS Bonhomme Richard. That is where the smoke is coming from on your screen from on board that ship. No word at this hour on the cause of the fire. We'll continue to follow it here on CNN.